Hey, what's going on, everybody? Andy here. And the prime directive of my life is to increase the quality of my consciousness and to help others do the same. And I just wanted to come chat with you guys for a few minutes today because it's been a while. Actually, it's been a few days. The weather here where I'm at in Minnesota is actually getting a lot colder. And so in the past, if you were watching my videos over the last few weeks, I do a lot of walking and talking. And the other day I went out to go record a video, and the only thing I could think about was how cold I was. I couldn't even focus on like what I could possibly talk about or discuss with you for a video topic or anything like that. So I have taken the last few days just to kind of reflect on, what time of day, what locations I might be able to record videos that allow me to get into my flow state. I'm just kind of talk to you guys about some powerful concepts. And so I decided to wake up super early today and try that out. So here we are. And again, I don't want to take too much time. I just want to talk about a really important topic. And it has a lot to do with frequency and tuning into the right frequency. Okay. And so the concept that I'm going to be introducing to you guys, and a lot of you might already have ideas or thoughts about this concept or paradigm in which to view reality, but I am under the impression, based on personal experience, that we all have this, it's like the word I'm trying to use is consciousness, but I'm trying to use a different word for it to help give it a more understandable approach. Essentially, our consciousness, the way it works, is like a radio, right? And when you think of like these old school radios, not the ones nowadays where you just on your smartphone and you click a station. I'm talking about the old school radios that had the dials, where you'd have to tune to 101.3 or 89.9 or 102.5, whatever the radio stations are. There's a dial, and you have to turn and tune into the frequency of whatever station you want to hear, whatever music is playing, or if you have like morning shows or whatever it is you like to watch or listen to on the radio, you'll have to dial into the frequency. And so in the same way that you would tune to a specific frequency on a radio, our consciousness can tune to a certain frequency within ourselves. And then what happens is then we start vibrating at a certain frequency. There's theories out there that say that there's infinite universes all happening at the same time. A universe where you're a millionaire, billionaire, super successful, and there's another universe out there where you're a homeless man on the streets who can't, live and function properly within society. And then everything in between, right? Ones where you've died young, ones where you're able to live very old, X, Y, Z, fill in the blank. Literally infinite. And when I say infinite, I mean unlimited. Like there's literally unlimited. Similar to the frequency that you would tune to on a radio, right? There's a bunch of frequencies if not infinite, right? If you think about the way that numbers really work, but for all intents and purposes here, back to the consciousness, when we have identified that there is a certain timeline or reality or universe that we want to exist in, right? In each of these realities, you could think of them each like a radio station, right? And each radio station is, to get to that radio station, you have to tune into that frequency, right? And so when you have identified the frequency or the universe or the reality in which you would like to exist, whether you're more successful, more happy, more wealthy, more healthy, good relationships, good whatever, fill in the blank, right? When you have identified within yourself, going through your visualizations and your meditations and your contemplations and really trying to figure out and create a good image in your head of who you would like to be and the type of reality that you would like to live in, all it takes is a matter of then now dialing that frequency within yourself to the same frequency that the reality that you're trying to live in is resonating at. And then once you're able to fine tune that frequency within yourself to match with whatever reality that you're trying to live in, then it's a matter of maintaining that consistency, right? And how do you maintain that consistency? How do you make the new reality that you've turned your dial to the permanent one? And the way you do that is by remaining consistent and persistent with your daily thoughts, feelings, and actions. And what you'll find is that, back to what I was originally saying, when everything is frequency and sound, and this goes back to quantum physics from the 1920s. They discovered that everything, even solid matter, stuff like this that feels solid, is actually just energy vibrating really, really quickly. When you like zoom in all the way, it's just a bunch of vibrating energy. And so when you understand that everything is energy, and you think about the best version of yourself and tuning yourself to that frequency so you can then live into that reality, the thoughts, they have energetic charges, right? And you can break that down and explain it like, when you think positive thoughts, you feel good. When you think negative thoughts, you feel bad. That's as simple as it is. And there's a really smart guy. His name is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he does a lot of big talks. He writes books about energy and the ability that the mind has to shape how we live our lives and how we exist and show up to other people. He was saying that when we have positive thoughts, there are certain chemicals that get released in our brain that help function things, that increase productivity or efficiency within our bodies and our brains. And on the flip side, there are emotions like stress, right? And stress releases, I'm trying to think of it, what it is. There's like certain chemicals that it releases. I'm not a doctor or scientist, but the chemicals that get released in your brain when you are stressing out actually have shown to break down and deteriorate not only our brains, but certain parts of our body. And it actually has come out in studies that the power of our mind and the way that we think about things is actually plays a big role in our level of health and our level of ability to operate within this world the way that we want to, right? And that is how thoughts carry energetic charge. If we are thinking positively, we're building and we're growing. And if we're thinking negatively, we're detracting and we're tearing down, breaking down, whatever. And then you think about, from right after that, if you have certain thoughts, right, they produce certain emotions, right? And then those emotions then produce feelings within your body. Now, if the thoughts carry energetic charge, you can definitely assume that the emotions also carry an energetic charge. And those emotions that we're feeling, the energetic charge, depending on whether it's positive or negative, and positive and negative in this sense is not good or bad. I'm talking about positive or negative as in what's helping build you and what's helping tear you down. And whether or not you look at those as good or bad is up to you. each one gives you the opportunity to grow and learn. But, sorry about that. The cat's kind of bugging out over there. But when you think about, okay, I hope he doesn't mess anything up. When you think about the feelings and emotions that are associated with the thoughts, right? If the thoughts are causing you to react in a certain way, not only mentally, but also physically, again, you could assume that the emotions are going to do the same thing. So then if you're feeling, right, emotionally, if you're feeling good, right, that carries an energetic charge, and it actually shows through in how you interact with people, how you have conversations, how you respond to people, and you know, just passing by, wishing the cashier a good day when they help you with your groceries or whatever. And then conversely, if you have a bunch of negative emotions or emotions and feelings that make you feel bad, both emotionally, like mentally, emotionally, and physically, that's also going to carry an energetic charge. And the charge is going to, again, come across in how you interact with people, how you show up, body language, tone of voice, right? Enthusiasm and energy levels. You can always tell, right? And then once you are feeling a certain way, right? So you've been thinking a certain way, it carries an energetic charge, which then translates over into how you're feeling, right? And then from these emotions, they produce a set of actions, right? Or a set of, like, all right, these are the results that I'm getting in my life, right? It's not even necessarily always the actions. Sometimes you can just pinpoint, all right, the results I'm getting in my life can be attributed to how I've been feeling, and how I've been feeling, it can be attributed to how I've been thinking. And so then circling all of this all the way back to dialing into the frequency, right? When you are dialed into the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions that the frequency of your best self is resonating at, and you're doing and you're matching up and aligning with those three things, the thoughts, feelings, and emotion, or thoughts, emotions, and actions of your best self, and you remain consistent over a period of time. It doesn't matter how long. For some people it's quick, for some people it's long, but the key is to make sure you're remaining consistent day after day, moment to moment, while you're dialed into that new frequency. And in a previous video, I was talking about homeostasis and the way that the ego works to keep us where we're at, right? So that frequency dial I was telling you about, when you turn that to your best self's frequency, it's not going to stay, right? If you're not being consistent with your thoughts, emotions, and actions of your best self, that dial will go right back down to wherever it is you're at right now. That's just the way that, he just hopped on the desk. Hopefully the phone doesn't fall. That's just the way that it works, ultimately, with the ego wiring in new mindsets and understanding how all of these things kind of coincide together and attribute to you being or not being the best version of yourself. And so I think it's important to make sure, this is our new kitty. Let me see if I can get him all comfy. Introduce him. This is Chewy. Chalupa. He's our new boy. My wife convinced me to get him. Adopted him. He's a nice kitty, honestly. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So when you think about the frequencies, right, and dialing into the best version of yourself, who you are right now is probably who you've been for a while, right? And your body, and not only your body, but your mind are comfortable with that. And that is the homeostasis that I was describing in another one of my videos. But essentially, when you think about how every time you have tried to start a new habit, or start a new business, or you're trying to be a better version of yourself, right? There's always some friction. There's always a reason why you can't do it, or why you can't follow through with your action steps that you're supposed to be taking on a day-to-day basis. Right? There's always a reason. And the reason this happens is because of the homeostasis, right? We have turned the dial to something that's not normal, right? It's not what we're used to or comfortable with. And our ego and our mind is like, I don't like that. Let's go back. No, these new mindsets, these new habits, I don't like it. It's rubbing me the wrong way. And now the reason that it's saying these things, and obviously using different words based on each individual, essentially it wants to stay where it's at. The ego's job is to make sure that you're safe and comfortable. And so anytime that you're not safe and comfortable, it's going to do whatever it can to survive. It's going to do whatever it can to maintain the place in its life that it has, maintain the control that it has over you, right? It's pulling strings, it's pressing buttons all the time. And if you've been set in a certain mode for a long period of time, trying to switch out of that can sometimes be very difficult for people because of the way that their mind will convince them that they need to stay where they're at to be safe, right? And so just like I was saying, whenever the ego feels threatened, it's going to react in this way. And the ego was designed millions of years ago to help us survive in the woods, right? When we're trying to hunt and gather for food, and there's wild animals that can kill us, right? The ego was designed to make sure that we stay safe in situations like that. So its whole purpose is to keep us comfortable and to make sure that we stay where we're at. And then so now, millions of years later, we no longer hunt and gather for our food, but that operating system of our ego is still in place. And so, although we're not, worrying about wild animals killing us in the woods when we search for food, the way that our mind looks at trying to grow and be a better version of ourselves, our ego will treat it the same way, because our ego has us where we're at, and when we're trying to grow beyond what we currently are at, the ego will do whatever it can to keep us where it's at. Even if it's a positive thing, even if we're trying to be, get in better shape, improve our diet, start a business, go out with a new person, or ask someone out that we maybe were nervous to ask out, or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, really. If you're trying to step outside of your comfort zone and grow, the ego will take that as an attack. And so you have to be very mindful of this, right? Especially if you're trying to live into the best version of yourself, using the methods that I've explained here. I was just working with a client the other day. It was my first coaching session back in multiple years, but we were working together on some pretty personal stuff. I'm not going to divulge any information, obviously. But essentially, he had come to the realization that it was the internal chaos that he was experiencing that was resulting in his external circumstances crumbling, if that makes sense. And so what he realized was that the frequency that he was tuned into was a version of himself that he doesn't want to be. He never wanted to be. He doesn't want to be now, and he doesn't want to be going forward. And so what me and him worked on together for a few hours in our session was dialing in that frequency back to the best version of himself to figure out, how does that version of you think every day? And if that's how that version thought every day, how would he feel on a regular basis? And if that's how he's feeling on a regular basis, what kind of actions does he take on a daily basis? and we started really, diving deep. They say that life is like an onion, right? That we are like an onion, and that to get to the center, we have to pull back many layers to figure out what's going on. So we were peeling the onion during our session and figuring out, okay, here's a core thought we've identified that makes him feel and act a certain way. And then we went like 3 or 4 layers deeper than that above to find like a super, like, ultimate core thought that spawned all of these other negative core thoughts that resulted in bad feelings and not so productive actions, right? And this was a powerful realization for him because it helped him realize that it really was all him, that none of the circumstances or results that he was getting in his life were, his family wasn't to blame, his job wasn't to blame, circumstances with friends and stuff weren't to blame. It was literally all him. And this was extremely powerful because not only is it like the realization that, wow, I'm the one messing all of this stuff up. On the flip side, if you look at it a different way, wow, that means I'm the one who has all of the power to fix this, right? And so we were talking about that for a couple hours and really helping him wire that in. And since then, and immediately that day, right after our talk, he had immediate results with what he was dealing with in his situation. And so it's important. And since then, he's had a lot of consistent results and great feedback for these new mindsets and actions he's taking. But that's just a perfect example of this frequency tuning, right? Again, infinite universes, they all have different frequencies, and we can tune to them like a radio. We are like a radio transponder, a transceiver, whatever word you want to use, I don't know, right? But more or less, we have the ability to shift timelines, to shift to a new reality if we choose to, right? We have to be aware of the things I'm talking about here and make the conscious choice every day to be that version of ourselves. And with the consistency, you'll be able to manifest the life of your dreams. I don't want this video to get too long, man. It's already the longest video that I've done yet on this page. If you made it this far, leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. How often do you check in on how you're representing yourself, right? How are you showing up every day? Are you dialed into the right frequency? Are you dialed into the frequency of your best self? So let me just end it here. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button, share this with a friend, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Looks like my son just woke up. Hi, buddy. All right, guys, it's that time for me. So you have a blessed day, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.